Hello, Didan. Welcome to In the Circle. It is such a pleasure to finally get a chance to talk with you. We've been trying to connect and everything seems to get in the way. And I am excited to be able to have this conversation. And as you know, I got your information from another, entrepreneurial minded individual that her name is Simone. And we had Simone on In the Circle talking about money and financing and budgeting, etc., which was a great chat. So I'm excited to talk to you because now everyone is just so confused about what they should do as far as nutrition, as far as what they put into their bodies. If you go on YouTube, you find so many different things that's out there. And I came across, the smoothie book that you had put together. So if you could just give us a little bit of background on who you are, where you are in the world, and what led up to you creating this Jamaican smoothie. There's just so many great ingredients that's in there. So I'm going to hand over to you and looking forward to hearing about how you came about to this point where you created that fabulous book.
Okay, well, thank you for having me, Candice. I appreciate your persistence. And I'm glad that we're able to connect and have this conversation. I am originally from Jamaica, but I've been around the world a bit. And at this moment, I am speaking with you from the island of Newfoundland, which is in the Atlantic, an island out in the Atlantic as far east of North America as you can go. And regarding green smoothies, the Jamaican green smoothie movement, yes, kicked off maybe about 6 years ago. And a book came out of that experience. It was rooted in the whole concept. Like my big thing is life management and resilience training. And so I recognize that your resilience is not just, persons will say it's emotional and mental strength to overcome or bounce back from challenges, adversities, but it takes a holistic approach to deal with any kind of hurdle that we come up against. And for a lot of persons, their health was their biggest hurdle. They may have had a great career, nice family life, money in the bank, but had health issues. And if your health isn't right, then it's like none of the goals that you set, none of the things that you prioritize get its due attention or due energy. And so a lot of people kept asking me, about how do you switch to a vegetarian diet, or how do you do this and that? And over time, I recognized that a green smoothie was a good gateway habit to transition to a plant-based diet. I recognized that if people started drinking green smoothies, it rewires your palate, and it makes you crave more plants, more fruits and vegetables. And so instead of me giving someone 5 steps to become a vegetarian, 5 steps to be vegan or whatever, I could just say to them, have a green smoothie every day. And some people took up the challenge, and I started developing recipes to help them, recipes that were specific to what we had in the Jamaican marketplace, the Jamaican backyard, because at that time, every recipe you came across online was featuring ingredients that we don't have readily available in Jamaica. And if you came across some of those ingredients, they were above your pocket or your budget. And so I decided, well, the basic premise of this beverage is fruits and dark green leafy vegetables. And of course, it's Jamaica, Caribbean island, we have tons of that, So I made sure to show people how they can optimize their lifestyle by starting with 1 cup a day, 16 ounces of dark green leafy vegetables and fruits.
Yes, yes. And it's funny because I hear you mention the term either vegetarian or vegan. and holistic. You know, those words are new to a lot of people that are listening. So for you on a personal level, where do you position yourself as far as what your nutrition buildup is about? And explain to us why you went into that, you know, why you went in that direction.
I would say I follow what is called a whole food plant-based diet. This means that you try to make sure that all the foods that you eat are as close to their original form as possible. So instead of having apple soda, you eat an apple. Or instead of having barbecue flavored potato chips, you actually have boiled potatoes or mashed potatoes. Like when I bring my food in, I should be able to recognize what it looked like when the farmer pulled it out of the ground or picked it from the tree. And of course, it also means you eat mostly plants. And the reason I say mostly is because a plant-based diet doesn't restrict you. It allows you to focus your attention on the foods that you think are most important to your well-being. And that definitely comes from plants. So yeah, some people would say it's vegan, like most vegan meals, I can have them. But I prefer to say a plant-based diet because when you say vegan, it tends to get political about, the rights of animals or
Mm-hmm.
the things you can and cannot wear. When for me, it's really just about maximizing the amount of plants that are on my plate. When I say plants, I'm talking about fruits, vegetables, peas, beans, nuts, seeds, lentils, all the grains you can think of, whether it's rice or corn or quinoa or couscous or whatever it is, bulgur. And of course, our root vegetables, our tubers, our yams, or potatoes, or dasheen, cocoa, all those things.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So you named a number of items because, and I'm glad you did, because people tend to get they tend to feel like a plant-based in the way in which you've described it is boring and expensive. You always hear people, well, it's too expensive to eat healthy. And it's funny because even though they'll use it in the same sentence to say, oh, to eat like that, to eat healthy is expensive, it tells me that the individual knows that it's healthier to
Mm-hmm.
eat in the format in which you are describing. So,
Mm-hmm.
what would you say to someone that says it is bland and it is expensive for me to eat this plant-based diet that you're describing?
I would say you should spend some time in the kitchen, becoming familiar with spices and herbs and sauces. Any good cook can take any ingredient and make it amazing. It doesn't matter what you put on the tray or the cutting board or whatever. If you're a good cook, you can make it taste good. You probably think of stories of people talking about the grandmother who had only these few items and they put it together. And when they put it together, they're like, wow, this tasted so
Mm-hmm.
good, the best meal ever.
Delicious.
And you just put together these few simple ingredients because the person is a good cook. A good cook doesn't need animal flesh to make a good meal. And if you think your favorite steak or lobster, you can't enjoy it as it came from the butcher's table or the fisherman's net without
Mm-hmm.
adding some plants to it. Your garlic, your thyme, your curry, all of these things come from plants, they come from the soil. So if you were to, I can eliminate every animal an animal byproduct from my kitchen and still make a long table full of a diverse amount of foods that taste amazing, full of flavor, great textures, great aroma, great colors, and everything. If you remove all the plants from your kitchen and you're left with only animals, I'm not so sure you'd be a fan of the food that they're eating anymore, because
That is left behind.
yeah, what's left behind, all you'd be left with is probably salt, because even black pepper comes from a tree. So you'd probably end up with just the salt that came from the ocean. And
Yes.
that's not enough to give you the flavor that you want. You check any great chef, if you go to a steakhouse or something, or a seafood restaurant, they're going to show you all the herbs and spices that they use. So the key to uh, a delicious plate is your mastery of herbs and spices.
Yes. So what about those people then that, okay, I'm going to give you two questions here that is almost on a different end of the spectrum. So you have people that, one, probably they can't cook. As you said, it requires a great chef to, not a great chef, but someone who knows their way around the kitchen. So I'd love to know, for someone that's starting out and may not know how to cook, probably what would you recommend? Is there any particular dish that you'd recommend for them to start with to kind of get in the rhythm of what they need to do? And I think you've actually touched on that a little bit with this green smoothie, but they may not be able to have a smoothie all the time. And then the second part of that is, as you're trying to put something together on your plate, even as someone that's learning, that's new, there's a saying out there about plant-based eating that it doesn't give you all the nutrition that you need, that, you do need that meat to get the full spectrum of nutrition that your body needs. So how would you address those two items?
Okay, so I'm going to respond to the latter question, which is the more vocal question that people tend to have. The first thing I would say is that before you question the nutrient density of my dietary choices, I would ask you to explain to me how intentional you are about what you eat when you are making your grocery shopping list. How much time and thought do you put into the items that you put on that list? When you prepare your meals, when you go to the restaurant to order, do you stop? And I'm not talking about counting calories. Do you stop and think about, does this have vitamin K? Does this have B6? Does this have B12? Do you stop and think about macronutrients and micronutrients? Do you know what those are? Do you know how many milligrams of a particular nutrient that you need? Do you know how much protein you need for your gender, for your height, for your body weight, for your lifestyle? And how do you know what portions, when you put on your plate, are adequate? So when you are saying, I need protein, do you know what the protein sources are? And when you if you say, of course, everybody knows protein comes from, let's say you pick beef. Do you know how much you need to consume every day for optimal health? When I say optimal, it means you're not getting too little and you're not getting too much, because excess protein has its dangers too. So do you know how much you need to be optimally healthy? And if you know that number, whatever that number is, when you're preparing your meals, your breakfast, your lunch, your dinner, how do you know how much you're getting from each meal? When someone is able to answer those questions for me, then I know I'm speaking to an informed person concerning human nutrition. And anyone who is fully informed about human nutrition, the science of the human body and how the consumption of different foods interact with your cells and that sort of thing, that person will not be asking me about whether or not my diet is going to give me all the nutrients I need. I've never come across someone who is trained in human nutrition or someone who understands biology and our dietary needs who is going to ask me that question. I've never come across it. Usually it's someone who
Yes,
doesn't know
yes.
who asked that question.
Right. And And the question is too, where are people getting their information from? I know you haven't answered my
Yes.
second half of the question yet about how to prepare meals, etc. But just to continue on your, most recent
Right.
statement, I'm just wondering where consumers are being informed about what to put into their bodies. And I feel like it's such a marketing, it's our decisions tend to come a lot from marketing and what we see on TV and what is pushed on us, etc. Even from a medical perspective, it's just so much that's coming at an individual. So I'm just curious for you, because I don't think have you always eaten this way, or did you
No.
transition into this form of eating?
Well, I must acknowledge that growing up, my mother regularly fed us vegetarian dishes, like intentionally, because her background is in food, and I mean, she still works in food and health services, but she was very intentional about exposing us to vegetarian dishes. We had vegetarian neighbors. So, of course, if you're having family events and you invite them, she's making sure to prepare foods they can eat. We had vegetarian relatives. So, um, I was exposed to vegetarian meals. So, it wasn't like this weird thing that I didn't know what it looked or tasted like. But if you checked me 11 or 12 years ago, I would, then you ask me, what do you like to eat? I would say anything dead and cooked. That used to be that used to be what I would say until maybe when I went to Japan and then started having sushi, which sushi is not cooked, it's raw. So then I had to
Mm-hmm.
cut the cooked part and just say once it's dead. um, and then over time, I got exposed, and I can still remember the interview I listened to, which someone is interviewing a medical doctor, and she was explaining, just as you're asking me, explaining how she transitioned from the standard American diet to a plant-based diet. And she explained her journey and what series of events led to her, reconsidering what she ate. And I was so impressed by, here's this doctor saying that I'm going to go against the grain and eat according to how my body feels happy. Because it's important for anyone listening to our conversation to know that this conversation is not about telling anyone what they should and shouldn't eat. I'm happy to sit at the table with anyone who wants to eat anything. Once they're comfortable with me not joining in whatever they're eating if it's not suitable for me. Each person has to get to know their body and know what makes their body perform optimally. And for me, my body performs optimally when I reduce or eliminate animal products and increase or just totally consume plant products. So, and I mean, I could go into detail of, different symptoms or reactions, but the long and short of it is that what you eat should be determined by what makes you feel good. When I say feel good, it's not just the mouth feel, oh, this is delicious, but how does my body perform? Do I have this foggy kind of, I can't figure out things, or when you go to bed, do you get up feeling rested? When you need to do something physically active, are you, winded and de-energized? How does your skin look? How does your hair function? Is it falling out? Is it dry and brittle? All these different things. You have to look at how your body is presenting itself. How are you showing up to the world? And assess yourself holistically, mentally, physically, spiritually, and say, do I need to make some changes? And make your decision. You have some people, they're flexitarian. They might eat vegan from I think 9 to 6, and then for dinner they choose to eat animals, eat meat, and that's fine. It's for you to decide. It's not for anyone else to tell you what to do. But if you seek the advice, then just be open that, you know, people might say something that is unusual or different. Yeah.
Yeah, but and it's such a, it can become such a touchy subject, you know, similar to religion
I think
and
only
politics.
I think it's only touchy if we don't respect that everyone is an individual,
Mm-hmm.
that I don't need to do the same thing as you for us to get along. Once we recognize that you can choose to have curry goat beside me and I will have ital stew, and it's totally fine. I don't hate you, you don't hate me. We're just feeding our bodies and we get up
Mm-hmm.
energized and we go and get our stuff done. Once we treat people with that level of respect, it shouldn't be a tense conversation, you know. It shouldn't. And I do know it can be tense because some people think that my decision to eat this vegan meal is my saying to them, you are wrong. When it
Yes.
is never about that, it's about what's right for me, you know. So some people, they probably, like you mentioned earlier, when they say I can't afford to eat healthy, subconsciously they know what the better choices are.
Mm-hmm.
And so when they come across someone who is making that better choice, then they kind of take offense to it because they feel almost like they're being attacked by their conscience. But
Yes.
instead of acknowledging that it's their conscience that's ribbing them, they project it on the other person, which that's not
Yes.
necessary. What I would recommend, if you come across someone like that, ask them advice, you know, ask their support, ask them, teach me how you make this, or what do you eat when you're in this situation. Let's ask questions and be open. That's what I would recommend.
Right, right. And I mean, your approach is, you know, is more of an open and approachable approach, if that's the best way to put it, because you do have people out there that is very, you know, you see them online that's very judgmental about anyone that even looks at an animal. And I think that's where some of the misunderstanding comes from, not, you know, for people not realizing and recognizing that my choice is my choice, your choice is your choice, and you can make a decision from there. But I think it's also important, as you said, for people to be able to analyze their being, their bodies. And I don't think people do that enough, where they, you know, where they can actually say, you know what, I'm not feeling good. I'm not feeling right. What do I need to change, or what do I need to do about that? So you said around 10, I think 11 years ago, if someone asks you what you eat, you'd say, you know, as long as it's dead and you know, you'll be able to eat that. What change have you noticed in your body, in your being, in your mind, in your essence? Have you noticed a change, transition into plant-based? And if so, what are some of those changes?
Okay. The first change that I noticed, which led me to explore plant-based diet, was that at the time I was living in Japan, and really old traditional Japanese cuisine is very plant-based. Um, it was when they, you know, the economy got really wealthy that they started to eat a lot of meaty dishes. And so I found that whenever I ate a meal that was like almost all vegetables and fruits, rice, whatever, didn't include meat or fish or chicken or whatever, I noticed that I wasn't having this heartburn, indigestion. And I don't know if you've ever heard this, but some Jamaicans would say the food is repeating on my stomach. And the concept
Mm-hmm.
of the food repeating on your stomach, it means
Yes.
that you're having indigestion.
Tradition.
So
Mm-hmm.
instead of the food going from your stomach to the intestines, it feels like the food is constantly trying to get broken down, and it has a sensation like it's trying to go back to your mouth to get broken down before it returns to your stomach. And I can remember from as early as maybe age 14, I noticed at the end of every meal, I had this really bad indigestion. And I also had this issue where I would be burping like maybe for the next 30 minutes to an hour following a meal every single time I ate. And um, there's nothing I could do about it, except when I didn't have meat. And so I started making note. I'm like, I ate today, but I'm not having indigestion. Or let's say I'll say, oh, I had this for lunch, but I'm not having the indigestion and I'm not belching. What is this? But then later when I go and I eat something that is typical, meaty food, then it would happen again. And I started noticing. So I started saying, okay, let's see if I don't touch any meat, any chicken, any fish, whatever, how I feel. And I made the clear observation that it was when I ate flesh that I had this indigestion. And I also took note that my mother, when I was growing up, I always saw my mother, once she was eating, the food would always come back to her mouth, like literally come back to her mouth. In the same way that you'd hear a cow is chewing their cud, you'd hear them say, the cow is chewing their cud. My mother would do that. But she would never bring up carrot. She would never bring up peas. She would never bring up potato. It was always whatever flesh food. Whatever flesh food was on the plate, that was what would always come back to her mouth. And so I just made a logical decision that this is my genetic makeup. This is how my body was designed. It's obviously passed on. And so I need to take note and make the adjustment accordingly. And it started slowly. First, it was okay, no beef, no pork. So I was gonna, the typical Jamaican having chicken and fish. And even then I said, let me keep, and until I was having, and then I still have a photo from the night at a steakhouse trying to celebrate my brother's birthday. And I am sitting with my hands on my cheeks, staring at this menu because I'm like, what am I going to eat? I don't know what I'm going to eat because I don't want any of this. And this is after realizing that, my body is not coping well with these meals.
Right.
And eventually I said, okay, I'll order the fish. And when it came and I looked at it, I had no desire for it whatsoever. I swapped it for somebody's salad that came with a steak or something. And that was the very last day I ordered or prepared any animal flesh for myself. And afterwards, I went to seminars and workshops. I bought books. I watched documentaries. I listened to interviews. I started consuming a lot of content that would inform me not only about the best way to nourish my body, but how to rethink food and how to approach the preparation of food so that I was better equipped. I mean, I went to a cooking course with like the master chef, Yvonne Hope, who runs Ashanti Oasis restaurant in Jamaica. This is someone who, original Rasta, where everything comes from, they're freshly picked. If they're going to get coconut oil, they make it from scratch. So she was a person who taught me, like legitimately took me through a course to learn how to prepare authentic Jamaican. And I mean, it included dishes, other recipes from around the world. But I formally went to a course. Now, everybody doesn't have to do that. Earlier you asked, what does someone do? Start with your favorite foods, your favorite dishes, favorite recipes, and learn how to substitute or to swap out. So if it is you like a good curry, instead of putting chicken or some lamb or whatever in it, swap it out with some mushrooms or some hearty beans or whatever. And so you learn the swaps. And if you don't know what to swap it out, it takes a simple Google. You want to know vegan butter chicken curry. And you must come across a recipe to tell you what to use instead of the chicken. So think of
cauliflower becomes your best friend.
Exactly. Cauliflower, mushrooms, eggplants, and then what you will recognize is that there was an entire section of the grocery store or the farmer's market that you did not make use of. You will begin to recognize that you were eating a very limited diet when you're eating the standard diet, because there are so many ingredients that never came into your diet. And when you become a plant-based eater, then you learn about more different kinds of fruits, different kinds of vegetables, different pulses, so many different ingredients that you never explored before, and you learn different ways to make them and so forth. But it requires the changing of your mindset. It's important to shift the way you view food, shift the way you view your body, shift the way you make daily choices about how you interact with other people. If you're going out, how to plan in advance. So that's required. And you need to learn, a little basic nutrition. Yeah. Not just, talking off the top of your head. Oh, I need this no, actually find out what you need.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. So did you have to, Didan, did you have to like transition a family into your new, when you transitioned, did you have a family at that time and then try to get them into eating similar, embrace the change that you've made?
I never tried to transition anyone. But if you are interested in getting support, I will give it to you. So when I made the decision to stop consuming animal products, I continued to prepare my husband's meals as he would normally have them. And I prepared other things for myself. Maybe after a week or two of me doing this, one day he just said to me, if you're not going to eat this stuff, don't give it to me. And so I didn't have to cook the meat anymore, and I just made one pot. And then when we had our children, they ate the same foods that we were eating, and they still do. So my whole family eats the same way, but I never told anyone, oh, this is what we're doing now.
Yes. You didn't force it.
No, everyone must choose for themselves. And someone might ask a question, but you're not telling your children to choose. And I'll say, neither are you. You don't come to your children and say, did you know there are vegetarians in the world? They don't eat chicken. Would you like to eat it? I think you should choose. Here is keto. Here's vegan. Here is this. No, you don't put all the options on the table before your child.
Yes.
You decide what you think is good for you and your family, and you prepare it. What I have said many times to my children, even as young as they are, is that one day you're going to grow up and you're going to decide if the things that mommy did is what you want to do. And I remember talking to my daughter recently, and I said, when you grow up, if you decide to do something different from me, that's totally fine, because there are things I do that's different from my parents. And so from this age, I want them to be aware, because sometimes when we're growing up, we feel like the things we're doing, it's because we're being told to do it. And so there's this desire to rebel against it, even without deciding whether we like it or not. And you might talk to someone and they say, well, my parents used to tell me that I have to do this. So as soon as I got out from them, I did the opposite. And then later in life, they realized, I actually preferred it my parents way, and they returned.
Yeah. But
it was because of this atmosphere, or this pressure created to feel like this is what you must do. Whereas if you let the person know that you still have the right to choose something else, then there's not this push to be like, well, you can't tell me what to do. I'm going to do exactly what you said I shouldn't do. So I don't tell my children, oh, you must eat. This is what I've prepared. If you want to eat, you eat. If you don't want to eat, then have a nap.
Yeah, absolutely. And so for the novices out there that's hearing this and saying, you know what, I've always wanted to go to a plant-based diet. And we already talked about the fact that, sometimes people think it's expensive. Do they have to spend more time in the kitchen? Do they have to spend more time prepping? Do they, what change that you went through, and what change would you highlight for them to understand that you're making this change? If you're transitioning into becoming more plant-based, these are the things to expect, and this is how you need to plan accordingly.
If you follow a whole foods, and the important part is whole foods are always less expensive than processed foods. Curry goat is always more expensive than curry chickpeas. You can get, I went shopping recently, and this is, what is it? Like maybe a 5 kilo bag of chickpeas for maybe $5.
Mm-hmm.
And you get 5 kilo of chicken for that amount of money.
Mm-hmm.
And then the thing about it is that most beans, peas, lentils, they swell once they're hydrated. Once you rehydrate them, the size doubles, right? So I can put 1 cup of dried beans to cook, and when it comes, I get 2 or 3 cups out of it. When you put 1 fish, you don't get 2 and 3 fish. So just by understanding those little details, those little dynamics, you recognize. And I mean, I compare with friends all the time. How much do you spend on groceries every month? And I've never come across someone who eats a standard diet, meat-based diet, who spends less than me.
Mm-hmm.
If you are going to go and buy all the farm meats, the fake meats, and the highly processed things to be like meat replacements, then you're gonna end up with expensive stuff. If you're gonna order out all the time, if you're gonna go to a restaurant all the time, then it's gonna be more expensive. But if you're gonna make your food at home, and when I say make your food at home, it doesn't mean that you're gonna go get soybeans and grind them and make the tofu from scratch. No, you simply are going to make sure that most of your cooking is done at home. There are ways to prep your food, and to there are shortcuts to everything. It just requires planning and proper time management. I don't spend more time in the kitchen than anyone else, and I don't spend more money than anyone else. It just means that you're gonna relearn. So you were doing things a particular way. Now you're gonna relearn, and the best way to do it is get some. I call them mates and mentors. So these are people who are further along the journey with you. Those are your mentors. They're gonna show you the ropes, give you the tips and the tricks and the hacks. And then there are the mates, the people who are transitioning with you. They are asking the same questions you're asking. They are learning the recipes just at the same time as you. And so you support each other, encourage each other, and say, oh, guess what I discovered in the supermarket today? You ever tried this? I went to this place and I tried this and it tastes so good, I'm going to make it at home. And you have that kind of, interaction and support. So any decision that you're going to make, you need mates and mentors. And that's why when I speak to people about resilience building, it's not just about, what I'm thinking. It's about who I surround myself with, who I allow to lead me, who I rely on for, encouragement. It's very holistic. So whether you're seeking to improve your health by your dietary choices, or you're trying to transform your finances, like Simone talks about, or you are trying to figure out life in a new country, like, I'm moving all the time. It helps when you have a plan, you rewire your thinking, you have habits that make sure that you endure the challenging situations. And one habit could be making food in advance and make sure you have something in the fridge or in the freezer so that when you come home dog tired, you
Yes.
don't just say, oh, I'm going to order something. You can take something out, pop it in the oven, and it's ready. You know, so you rewire your thinking, you develop better habits, and you surround yourself with the right people.
Yes, yes. And I think at first too, it's going to be challenging with anything that if you're changing, it's going to be
Any
challenging.
change, any
Yes,
change.
yes. Just the other day I was saying, I'm not sure if it was my dad, I was saying, I'm wondering what's going on. I'm seeing all this jackfruit in the grocery store. Just to
Right.
discover that because of the increase of the number of people that are going plant-based, jackfruit is an excellent meat replacement. Apparently
Yes,
you
it
can,
is.
you can season it and, green, I guess the green jackfruit. I hope I'm not sure if it's the red or the ripe or the green one, but I understand the green one, you have that ability to do that. And I also encourage people that, you need to soak, get ready, get used to soaking, soaking your beans and things like that. I'm not sure if you do that as well, Didan.
To soak, but people will tell you, oh, I don't have time for that. So I'm all into the hacks. Get a good pressure cooker,
Mm-hmm.
get a good instant pot, and in 30 minutes, you could have some dal, curry dal to go with the
Mm-hmm.
freezer naan, the naan that you
Yes.
bought on the freezer. And that's it. When you think about eating some chicken, you have to take it out of the freezer from the night before, make it out, then you have to cut it up, and then you have to season it and let it marinate overnight. When I get into my kitchen, I take the beans out, I throw them in the instant pot. Depending on the type of bean, pea, or lentil that it is,
Yes.
it can take from 10 minutes to an hour, depending on what I'm using. And
Yes.
it's done. I don't need to thaw out anything the night before. I don't need to go chop it up and season it and all those things. And someone might say to me, but I can get it off the fridge and pre-seasoned. I can also get pre-made curry chickpeas
Yeah.
or some lentils in barbecue sauce, or every choice you make, someone has made it convenient. But the
Mm-hmm.
point is that it just requires you retraining your
Yes, the
brain.
mindset. Yeah. Yeah. I guess you don't have to worry about in your kitchen, Diane, about if your poultry is mixing with your vegetables or mixing with,
No,
it,
there's no cross
there's
contamination
no
happening.
cross contamination. Um, this has been such an insightful discussion, and I really appreciate it. I'm just wondering, is there a question that you probably wish I would have asked, something that you think the audience would benefit from? Because we have people from the Caribbean that listens, from the US, from Canada, and as far as the UK. So I'm just curious, is there anything that you think is vital to share with our audience today?
I think something that's very important for anyone to understand when undertaking any kind of transition, any change in your life, is that you need a stable foundation before you can build. And when I say that, I mean, if your life is really hectic and stressful right now,
Mm-hmm.
that first before you try to take on a new diet. New
Wow.
diet is going to fail if your life is not in a stable place to accommodate change. If you're having stressful relationships, your diet is going to fail.
Mm.
If your money issues are coming up, your life is going to fail, your diet is going to fail. So it's important that when you're looking to make that change, and that's why I spoke about the mates and the mentors, but if there is something that's keeping you up at night or that is consuming your mind, focus on that thing, get rid of it, take care of it before you try to tackle any major life change, lifestyle
Mm-hmm.
change.
Mm-hmm.
So that would be my number one advice, because I've seen a lot of persons try to build a new habit, whether it was with green smoothies or with changing to a plant-based diet. And a few weeks in or a couple months in, when life happens, then they're like, oh, this is not working for me anymore. When really it was just that they were um, they were not in a place where life was stable and ready for
Yes.
change, you know?
Yes. Yes. So I know you have the Green Smoothie and book, and I'd love for you to tell people where they can find it. But additionally, I'm curious if there's anything else that you have coming out, because you have all those hacks and tricks that we're talking about. You've been doing this for some time. So first, just let us know where they can find your Green Smoothie book, and also where they can find your period online, and if you have anything coming out in the future.
Okay, so the book is called Jamaican Green Smoothies, and you can find it anywhere books are sold online, whether it's Amazon or any other major book retailer. You can find it there. For what I'm focusing on now, I have, as a globetrotter, I have a special interest in supporting foreign nationals wherever they're located. So whether they are newcomers to Canada, where I'm based, or they have moved to, say, Japan or somewhere else to work or study, I realize what a hurdle that can be, not just for adjusting to a new culture, but figuring out the food and figuring out the language and the separation from family, and deciding what your priorities are and what's my next step in life and what I want to achieve out of this maybe 2-year contract or whatever that I'm on. It can become overwhelming, especially when you don't have anyone who has done this before to show you, what direction to go in, what choices are better than others. And so those are the persons that I have been working with throughout the year. Sometimes they are focused on their dietary habits because they move to a new location. They don't see the foods they're accustomed to. And so they panic and they eat junk. And sometimes it is like them not knowing, what are my goals? What am I doing with my life? I'm stuck. So giving them that kind of support so that they get their life in order, because life is just a lot of little projects, every area of your life is just a project to work on. And if you get the right tools and strategies, you will learn how to manage your life and to thrive and be resilient when life inevitably happens.
Which it will.
Yes, it will.
I can guarantee you that will happen for sure. Excellent. So you're online. Do you have a blog? Do you have a channel? Do you have any, what's your social platforms are like? Because I'm sure people will be interested in being able to follow you.
If you'd like to follow me on Instagram, though I haven't actively posted on it for a while, but on Instagram, my handle is Didan Ashanta. And but the main space to catch me is on my website, didanashanta.com. That's DIDANASHANTA. And we can stay in touch. If you have questions, catch me on Facebook or anywhere. And I think I work a lot under the radar. But people know where to find me. But yeah, definitely,
yes.
You can find me at my website or catch me anywhere on social media.
Excellent, excellent. Well, it has been such a wonderful pleasure to have you finally getting a chance to chat. I know, this direction is plant-based. A lot of information is out there, but not so much for people of color and also people from, Caribbean descent, etc. So it's such a wealth of information that you have provided. And I'll be sure to add your contact information in our details for the podcast as well. But thank you so much, Didan. A pleasure to have you, and wish you all the best. And I hope, we can come back in the future and have a chat, because I can see great things are coming. I'm sure there's another book. I'm sure there's so many other things that's going to be coming your way. So we look forward to reconnecting. So thanks again.
You're welcome. It was a pleasure speaking with you, Candice.